Good evening and welcome to Legacy After the Locker Room. I'm your host, Kayla Bradham, here tonight with NFL alumni and Vice President of the Orange County NFLPA, Dave DesRochers. Thank you, Dave.
Hello, Kayla. Now
I'm so excited.
It's gonna be easy to remember your name. It's my daughter's name, so
You have great taste in girls' names, Dave.
well, I can't take all the credit. My wife came up with that, but when we get older and we have concussions, the last thing you want to forget is the host's name. So that's one. At least I could check that one off the list.
Dave, I don't know if you saw the podcast last week with Jimmy C. Garner, but I was doing a 72-hour EEG with video. A year ago, I had my 8th concussion. And the more you have, the worse they get. And
Indeed.
I've gotten some seizures and, I just decided it's better to be open about it and create concussion awareness, especially for athletes. So
Sure.
Thank you. Dave, I want to start this if you don't mind. First of all, let's tell people how we met. I was super blessed to see you on Radio Row in LA. You were at the Heart of a King Ministries with Darren Gray doing some public speaking, motivational speaking. You had a great story that tugged at my heart. So I just want to say before we even start, thank you for joining us tonight and creating hope. Thank you.
Of course. I'll tell you. So yeah, that was for me an interesting event because it's my story is something I've shared in certain circles, but never in an instance amongst my peers. And when I'm looking out in the audience and there's Sean Alexander, one of the greatest Seahawks of all time, and then others that I have met. It was very heartening for me when I was done to be greeted by them and thanked for sharing the story. So that meant a lot to me, and it's kind of empowered me to continue to do it and to share it in other venues. And then, of course, meeting you. It was your dad as well, right?
My business partner, Roy Kessel, the founder of Sports Philanthropy Network.
Yeah. So and you're a mighty might at what 5'1"?
Yeah, 5 little.
Yeah, I don't know if you can put the pictures. If you can put the pictures up, but there you were amongst giants that evening. Well,
I really was. Well, I'm glad that I texted you the pictures of you and Sean in front of the backdrop on the red carpet because precious memories then.
Indeed, yeah.
Awesome. Dave, do us a favor. Tell us a little bit about sports growing up and sort of what your path looked like getting to play in the NFL with the Seahawks.
Well, I'll tell you, Kayla, it's a story I share quite often because I speak to a lot of young people. It's something that's endearing to me to be able to speak to, high school level sports kids and even younger youth groups, and not always sports across the board. And a lot of people assume that everybody sitting in the NFL was the best of the best going back to high school. Well, frankly, I wasn't even going to play football because I wasn't good, and I had a small scholarship to a small Division II school, LA City College, or I don't know, whatever it was. And so I was good, going to go play basketball, and then we had a new football coach show up on campus and greeted me, hey, big guy, you're going to play football next year, and when I told him no, he was beside himself. And I told him, hey, look, I'm not very good, and I'm going to play basketball. He said, where are you going to play? And I told him, he said, come play football for me, and I'm pretty sure I can get you a better scholarship. I said, okay, well, I wanted to play football, but, so I went out, and after about 3 days, he pulled me aside and said, son, you're not very good. Like I tried to tell you, and he said, but you could be. And he said, I needed to get lighter on my feet. And, and so he handed me a jump rope. And that was the absolute last thing I wanted to do, something that girls do with ease and me being already somewhat uncoordinated, growing into my body. But I wanted to be good at football, and I took it home. And this, the story that I, of course, share is that I got actually very good at it. And I don't know that it made me a better football player. But it gave me confidence because when I showed him what I was able to do before the next season, he was taken aback. And, having that confidence or that support through him that he wanted me to do well. And when I showed that I was willing to do those things, earned me a position, a starting position. And then I had to choose between 3 or 4 Division I scholarships. And so what he promised me came through. And And I'll tell you, I still wasn't very good when I got to San Diego State, but I had a lot of potential. But when you're 6'7", with the frame that I had, there was potential there. But I grew into that, and then got to finally earn a starting position there, and then had some success. And it was kind of cool. I got invited to play in the Hula Bowl with Thurman Thomas and Tim Brown, and to share the field with those Hall of Famers was neat for me coming out of college. Once again, not always that great, and so I had a lot of memories. And one neat thing, though, kid, I will share is while I was at San Diego State, it'll be a testimony to how bad we were. I actually also played basketball one season. Now that program is pretty doggone good. But there was certainly a void after Michael Cage left, and Smokey Gaines needed some help. So he got this big old football player out there, but that was fun for me to be able to play both sports at San Diego State.
So you ended up getting picked up by the Seahawks.
Yes.
And as you just alluded to, some great men, some good friends that you're still in contact with. How did your career sort of out of the NFL go for you? Did you know what you wanted to be after sports?
No, I didn't. You brought up the draft. I think maybe as we were chatting before we came on, the draft was so much different then in the 80s. So, the phone was attached to the wall. And so if we weren't there to answer it, there's no way for them to track us down. And I was supposed to, according to my agent and some others, go the first day. And when I didn't get drafted the first day, I was discouraged. And anyway, so I didn't think I was going to end up in Seattle. And I came home. My folks asked where I'd been all day. And they said, well, by the way, the Seahawks drafted you. So I ended up in Seattle. And after my second preseason, I got released. And then I went to sell cars. I thought I was going to be there forever, as many of us do. And I was getting a lot of positive reinforcement about how I was doing there. But it was just a roster move that Chuck informed me about. And so I went to selling cars. And then I tried out for this league on my own, the World League of American Football, which was owned by the NFL owners, and made that league and played in Montreal for 2 seasons. After my second season there, I was asked by the Raiders and the Redskins to come into camp as a free agent, no bonus or anything, no promises, just give me the opportunity. But I'd also met a gentleman in the off season. I got into acting, and I ran a club called the Roxbury in Hollywood. I was the head of security there, and of course, meet a lot of people. It was a who's who of Hollywood, and that gentleman actually, after talking for quite a while, told me he wanted me to come work for him as a project manager. And I said, well, the Raiders and the Redskins want me to come to camp, and he said, well, how much can you make? Well, Kayla, this was before you were born. Back then, an average offensive lineman was only making about $250,000, and that's somebody with some years in the league, and that was about average. Some of the high side, no one was making $1 million yet. They were high side was maybe 700, and those are the guys that have been 12-year guys. And I told him $250,000. He said, "Well, you can make that working for me." And I went, "I'm good with football. Let's go to work." And I was 27. I wasn't killing it, and it was I didn't know it at the time. I didn't end up making $250,000 with him, but I still, suffer. We talked about concussions briefly. I've got some other health issues and just, aches and pains. And I'm glad I didn't play more years. It would have been great for my ego to be able to have done that, but my body is sure appreciative of the fact that I walked away when I did. But no, I didn't have a game plan. It was just I lucked into it. That ended up not panning out. Land values in California dropped because of the defense contracts and other issues, but he also owned a financial planning firm, and he got me fully licensed to do that, and I did it for 20 years very successfully. So I lucked into my career paths, and I didn't have training in either one of those, but I learned it. So,
Dave, I got to say this. You talk about how really you were blessed not staying in the league. And I think about guests who've been on this show, Doug Plank, Ben Utecht, Jelly Roll Dalton, Randy Grimes, the effect of painkillers and hits over and over and over and over, and the lifelong repercussions.
Yeah. I experienced the downside of the pain pills as well. I had a knee surgery later. It was much later. I'd have had 3, but it was due to a crazy happenstance, a slip and fall. I was coaching high school football. I had my soft cleats on. You know, we're at a buffet, and maybe it was God's way of telling me not to go to a buffet. But I slipped, fell, hurt, re-injured that knee. It was still injured from playing in Montreal. I never got it scoped, and then it re-injured it. And I was introduced to painkillers after having that surgery, and I liked them. As many guys do, and got used to that, and really was probably prescribed well more than I should have been taking, but I took them, you know, and that is not something I would wish on anybody, and anybody that's overcome that is a champion, because that is just a horrible thing to deal with.
Yeah, thank you for being so vulnerable and transparent, sharing that. You know, I listened to Jelly Roll Dalton talk about 9 years in the NFL, the painkillers, his size, and the hits. And, you know, he thought he was at the end of his life, you know, like if it wasn't for that transplant organ donor, he probably wouldn't be here right now.
Wow.
So lesson learned for all of us, take what you need and get off of it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a couple of things, you know, the thing is that a lot of people don't take into account is not just the size, but the speed of everybody out there. And my helmets are behind me. Each one of those helmets, you can't see it from there, but they are scarred. I hit with my head. I once again, a good reason why I should not have played more than a couple of years, 4 years, whatever. That I hit with my head. I ran down, I was 360 pounds, and I was running all over the place hitting people. And I will, on occasion, you know, hand people the helmet and hand them a hammer and say, I'll give you $20 if you can put a gauge half the size of that and hit it as hard as you want. The amount of the impact that it takes to create that is amazing, and that's what we were doing, you know, all year long.
You know, that's, first of all, absolutely crazy, and I'll use this opportunity to actually commend the NFL. I don't always do that. You and I know the business of business is business. Business in the NFL is alive and well. But I was blessed to be invited to attend the NFL owners meetings last month done at the Breakers in Florida, and to listen to the doctors and the committee on athlete health and safety. I actually have hope more than I ever have with the fact that they're using the Guardian caps, that they're really looking at the turf, that they're trying to get it right. That doesn't mean they have it right. But I think there's been enough of an uproar that everybody is taking athlete health and safety seriously for maybe the first time.
Well, and I hope they take it a step further than just securing the health of the guys playing today, but, you know, recognize that those of us that were taking smelling salts and salts and just taking a play off and get back in there, guys get taken care of, because they're still kind of half measures a little bit. And I'm dealing with a lot of that. And I'm sure you've heard plenty of stories from guys that are trying to go through the various protocols, and it's just really difficult. It's like, okay, they've acknowledged it, that some things are in place and there, but I'll tell you, it's still from a former player, and dealing with the former players, I hear a lot is you know, they're discouraged, and you know, and it's difficult to qualify for the benefits. It's getting better, because I think the pressures, you know, from people, you know, from fans or from former players in the union, to really, you know, take the measures to, you know, take care of the guys that didn't really realize what they were getting into and didn't protect themselves.
Yeah, and let's take this opportunity to shout out, you know, some of the great people who are working so hard. Last night I was blessed to be with Karen and Sonia with Mike Ditka's Gridiron Greats Foundation. We were doing a networking event and collecting sports bras for underserved women and girls. And you see the work that Ditka's doing with the players from the 80s and the 90s. And I'm so grateful for foundations and charities like Gridiron Greats.
Yeah.
So
indeed.
important to shout them out.
Yeah.
Dave, if you don't mind, I want to sort of move into this next segment, you know, exactly what we talked about at the beginning of the show, creating hope and possibility through sports with your story. Before we do that, let's take just a moment and thank our sponsor, Dugout Mugs. Folks, if you use Kayla30 in your checkout, you will save 30% at Dugout Mugs. Thank you to them. And also thank you to Sports Philanthropy Network for powering Legacy After the Locker Room to help us build stronger, healthier, and more inclusive communities. Go ahead with your story if you don't mind, because I think it's so important.
Sure. Well, well, the story I shared, of course, when we met was, in my transition, there was a lot of success, but then there was a lot of other things going on that aren't on my LinkedIn. If you look at my LinkedIn, it's like, holy smokes, this guy is just always kind of had it all figured out, and boy, he went right from professional sports to acting to, general contractor and owned his own financial planning firm. And now he's starting a business. And now, well, there's some stuff in between there. And I will tell you, they kind of came to a head after that surgery, dealing with some prescription drug, issues and other just, partying and do things that I shouldn't have been doing. And getting away from my faith is really the basis of where kind of things unraveled, because I had no foundation. I just didn't have anything holding me accountable. And when you have a lot of money and a lot of time and you're not really 100% pleased at where things are in life, boy, that's not a good place to be. And boy, I found trouble, and it wasn't immediately apparent to me. And I equated to when I was getting my butt kicked. I shared the story of when I was playing against BYU, playing against a guy named Sean Knight. He's 6'8", 300 pounds. I was a junior. He was a first-team All-American, first-round draft pick, and he was just kicking my butt. And I went to go back on the field, and I get a tug from my coach, and he goes, "Son," he goes, "you're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing your parents up there, and you're embarrassing yourself. And so you sit this series out and decide if you want to play." Well, so I knew I was getting my butt kicked, but I didn't know it was that bad. And at that moment, of course, I sat there and said, yeah, I deserve to be on that field, but I can't very well go back out there doing the same thing and expect a different result, and I needed to change things up if I had wanted any chance of not only staying on the field for that game, but being back out there at all. And I did change up what I was doing and ended up getting lineman of the game. And so, that, wasn't also an apparent, victory. I just ended up having a good game, and we beat BYU for the first time in 12 years. And once again, had a decent collegiate career and went on to play. Well, getting back to in life, I was getting my butt kicked, but I didn't really realize it, because look at how much money I have. Look at my big house. Look at all my cars, my boat, trailer, all these things. So outward appearances, a whitewashed tomb, was that I had it all figured out. And so I just kept praying to God, okay, not today, God. Okay, today I don't want to do anything foolish. Let me just get through my day, and it just didn't happen. And I guess God got tired of that prayer and just said, well, son, all right, let's see you act a fool with no money. And he just started taking stuff away. And I ended up through, my divorce and all kinds of things, losing everything. But that wasn't enough. I still had, I'd sold the business. I still had, some things going on, and I had a new girlfriend that believed in me. And I just kept on unraveling. And there's another side story to that will take up a little bit too much time, but just personal things. And finally I ended up on a park bench one day, and she was tired of talking to me. Everyone was kind of tired of talking to me. And I sat there. And when I think back, I was almost like God said, son, you're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing your parents, and you're embarrassing yourself. I've blessed you with so much, and this is what you've done with it. You think about if you want to get back into this game, if you want to get back into the game of life and live the life that I have planned for you. And I did. And I sat there, I said, yeah, I have a lot more to offer than this. And I had absolutely nothing in my pockets other than my wallet, which was empty. I was financially, spiritually, and emotionally bankrupt. I just had nothing to do. And I had a number of a guy my brother gave me. My brother's a head pastor, old friend of ours. And he had offered, hey, Dave, if you want to just get it for a little bit of a change, if you want a place to stay, I got a buddy. He's got a house, plenty of room, and you can come stay out there. Well, it was Riverside. So for those of you, I know you're back east, Southern California has really nice places and then not so nice places. And Riverside is out there and is not quite as nice. And but I prayed. I was like, okay, God, I'll do whatever it is. I obviously don't have it figured out. Took out that number, called Greg. He said, I'll come get you in the morning. So I sat there. All night, and he came and picked me up and took me out to a gentleman's house that Had multiple beds, fans. It was 110 degrees. And she showed me the bed. It was a twin bed with a fan blowing. And before I could say, oh, heck no, I remembered what I prayed. It's like, okay, God, whatever you say. And I sat on that bed, Kayla, and this is no joke. I don't sensationalize this at all. I had my cell phone and a $50 Starbucks card. My buddy had bought me some groceries for the fridge, and that was it. And that's where I started over, and literally had, just nothing other than just some personal items, and just started my life over. And I walked to a minimum wage job at a gym. And then I got a couple of paychecks, got a bus pass, and then I got a couple more paychecks and bought a car at 28% interest. But God put me right where I needed to be to focus on me, to appreciate all those things that I had in the past that I didn't have anymore. And then he put me in a gym. What better place? Obviously, you can tell I like to talk. So what better place for a guy that likes to lift weights and likes to talk than a gym that you can sit and network yourself all day long? You got a captive audience. They're stuck there for an hour, and I met some people that wanted me to be involved in their companies, and I became a partner and vice president of a startup company. I opened a sober living home for young people. I never went through treatment or anything like that. Fortunately, I probably could have. I don't know, but I never had to go through that route. But I do know this is that they needed a good place and a person that's kind of been through it to help them through it. And I took a God approach to it. If the people are 12-stepping and doing their thing, that's great. But God saved me, and that's how I took the approach. And, it was just a blessing. And, since then, since turning my life around, getting back into my faith, I sit on a couple of boards. Gosh, I was asked to do that talk, at the Heart of the Champion, during Super Bowl week. I get an opportunity to do these podcasts. I'm now launching two companies. One is a for-profit company called Employers, and we're going to be a career placement company. But my heart is in the First and Goal Project. And the First and Goal Project is going to provide education, training, certification, and mentoring to people that are at risk or just looking to turn their lives around. We're focusing primarily on veterans. But we're also working with people that are coming out of incarceration, domestic violence, trafficking, and treatment and rehab. The services will all be free. And then when they go through the program, the people that qualify, then we'll help them find jobs through Employers. And I just want to share quickly how I came up with the First and Goal Project. It's actually something I secured a couple of years ago, and I didn't know how I was going to use it. But when a team gets into the position of being a first and goal, their chance of success is 98%, meaning they're going to score somehow 98% of the time. That's a very high success rate. However, when they start on their own 10-yard line, their chance of success is less than 10%. So how does a team get into a position of first and goal? Well, it takes hard work, practice, coaching, being coachable, a game plan, execution. Well, that's what the First and Goal Project is going to provide individuals. We're going to provide all of those things, that training and certification and education and mentoring. And we have so many people and people that have probably been on your show. Just rock star people, not only former professional athletes, but veterans and sergeant majors that are working with veterans to provide and put people in the best position for them to have success. And we're going to put you in a position of first and goal so you can move and change your life.
I love what you're saying, Dave, because you go from this story of I wasn't that good to I made it to the NFL to I lost everything to God got a hold of me and I got it back to now it's time for me to give back.
Yep.
And it's crazy how sometimes we lose everything, get it all back only so that we're in a position to give. I'm so grateful for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I will tell you, for the past year, I've been working for other startups for no money, trying to get some things off the ground and working for a health company that just didn't pan out. So probably not the best business strategy to try and launch a company when you've gone through your savings, just keeping your head afloat. But I'll tell you this, man, the grind is awesome. And getting back to people that are supporting me, wanting to be involved, like Brandy Winans, which you probably know of, Randy Grimes. I mean, she's a rock star, man. She wants to be involved in um, um, Mario Fields, who is Sergeant Major, retired Marines. He's certified through the Department of Labor. He helps people. He helps veterans all the time. I mean, this can go on and on. But I'm also having friends reach out to me saying, "What do you need to get this thing going?" And I sit and when I pray and I think, okay, if I should I be doing this? And son of a gun, if not that day, somebody will call, "Hey Dave, let's have a meeting. Let's see what we can do to help you with this." I even received a grant from a veterans group, a small grant, albeit, but what I shared with them is that the fact that they would, pre-revenue, pre-everything, just based on concept in our discussion, be open to giving me any money to help me get this thing started, just because they saw the value in what we're doing and what my vision is. And he goes, "Look, I wish I could have given you more, but our bylaws don't allow us to give any money to startups." And I convinced our board to do this, and then come back in 6 months, show us progress, and we'll give you more funding. I mean, if that's not a message to, David, you're on track here. And that to me was more valuable than any dollar amount. Is just the validation of what I'm wanting to do and what I'm trying to do with the First and Goal Project and employers.
So I'm sure people are listening to this literally moved at the soul level of saying, I've got to do something. I can do something. Dave, if people want to help with the First and Goal Project or have, some input or ideas for employers, how can people get a hold of you and reach you?
Well, so I don't know if you're going to, I see a lot of words moving, but once again, 57 concussions. I try and focus because I see a lot of stuff there. But my email address is real simple: Dave@thefirstandgoalproject.com. That's probably the easiest way to reach me without putting a phone number on blast. But boy, if you send me an email and you have questions about what I'm doing, you want to know more about what I'm doing, or you want to help contribute, or you want to be involved, once again, I can go through that list and it would probably take up to 30 minutes of people that we're going to have, interested in sitting on the board or contributing their expertise. Because the other thing that, Kayla, that we want to provide is, there's so many job placement firms out there in career placement, and they give you a job and, they collect their fee and, it's like, good luck. This is a community. The First and Goal Project is a community, as I mentioned, mentors. And so if you go to that job and you struggle, as many veterans do, as many professional athletes do, they're not used to being told, in certain ways, or they don't have their teammates around them, or whatever that is we want you to succeed at this transition. And so employee retention is very important, that you go there and you have a resource. If you are struggling and you don't want to talk to your boss about it because you're afraid you're going to upset them or you're going to get upset, come to us, because we've been around a minute and we're going to have people in place that are going to help you. Brandy and all that she does on the family side of things and dealing with us, holy smokes. And she's got just a killer story. So it's going to be a whole community of that. Once you come to us, if you need additional training, if you're looking for another transition, we are going to offer Cal OSHA certification. We just real quick, I don't run out of time. We did a soft launch. We put 2 emails out to former NFL players through my friend Brad Leggett in the Pro Players Elite Network. 2 emails out. We had about 90 guys click through. We had 16 guys enroll, and we had 6 guys get Cal OSHA certified. The biggest thing, though, for me, Kayla, was talking to each single one of these guys saying, Dave, I'm lost. Some of you guys had some years in. I'm lost. Taking jobs as a fulfillment at Amazon, which is, you got to pay the bills. I'm not downplaying that, but there's more available, but they just don't know what that is. And that's what we want to provide them. And one of my brothers said, Dave, this is the best conversation I've had in a year. I'm like, okay, now if former NFL players are feeling that way, think about the veterans, think about people coming out of incarceration. They just think there's just nothing for them, and they go right back into that do loop. And we got to fix that.
Thank you for working hard to fix the things that need to be fixed. Speaking about giving back and doing more and using your life to accomplish good works, Dave, I ask every guest on Legacy After the Locker Room to partner with me for my charity of choice, Special Olympics. Can we count on you for an autograph donation?
Indeed.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to give you a minute, words of wisdom, parting advice. You take this minute and you just, share your heart and encourage everyone before we sign off.
Well, here's what I like to tell or share with young people, and it's how we approach every single thing that's presented to us, just like what we just did here, Kayla. It's like, people contact me and ask me if I want to do this, or, I'm doing charity golf tournaments or whatever the case may be, or a meeting for my company. Is anytime you have an opportunity to meet with somebody, there's two approaches that can be taken. You can walk in there with an agenda, which is all about me and what am I going to get out of this? Or you can walk in with a purpose, and it's what about you? What is it I can do for you? What kind of value can I generate for you? Well, in an agenda-driven meeting, if I'm a good salesman, which I am, and all I see is a dollar sign over your head, meaning that's what I'm out to get. What am I going to get from you? You know what? Even if I win, I lose, because if I get that dollar, you're going to feel sold. You're going to feel like it was a transaction. You feel like I was in it for me, and we'll never talk again, nor do business, or nor will I do business with anybody that you know. If I walk in with a purpose and, Kayla, what can I do for you? Sure, I'd love to do the show. Yeah, I'd like to talk about what I'm talking about. But more importantly, Kayla, was that giving people hope. Hey, if I could be a knucklehead and lose everything with everything I was blessed with, just because you've lost everything doesn't mean that's where you're at. You just need to make a decision to stop and move forward. So, yeah, walking with a purpose, build a relationship. And you may or may not do business, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to build the relationship and then help others. And if there's business to be done, we'll do it. And probably with pretty much everyone you know too. So just always walk in with a purpose, never walk in with an agenda. It's not about us. It's not about you. It's about us. It's not about you. It's about us.
That is great advice. Folks, my name is Kayla Brett. I'm here tonight with NFL alumni and VP of the Orange County NFLPA chapter, Dave DesRochers, reminding you to live your legacy. Thanks, Dave.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.